The Supreme Court ruled this evening that the abortion pill mifepristone would remain widely available for now, delaying the potential for an abrupt end to a drug that is used in more than half of abortions in the United States. The order halts a sweeping ruling by a federal judge in Texas who had declared the Food and Drug Administration's approval of the pill more than 2 decades ago invalid. As an appeal in the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit moves forward. This is a victory for women and people all over this country. A leading anti-abortion group blasted former President Donald Trump yesterday after his campaign said he believes states should decide abortion laws. Susan B. Anthony, Pro-Life America, issued a scathing response to a statement the Trump campaign made to the Washington Post when it was asked whether Trump supported the 6-week abortion ban a likely 2024 opponent, Governor Ron DeSantis, signed into law in Florida. A North Carolina man accused of shooting a man and his 6-year-old daughter was in custody yesterday in a case neighbors say began when a basketball rolled into the suspect's yard. Robert Singletary, 24 years old, turned himself in Tampa, Florida, after a manhunt that began Tuesday night in Galveston County, North Carolina. The Tennessee Republican who voted to expel Democrats resigns after ethics violation. State Representative Scotty Campbell stayed in office following the March ethics finding, and on April 6th, he voted to expel Representatives Justin Jones and Justin Pearson, who have since been reinstated. Campbell's resignation comes hours after a Nashville TV station confronted him about sexual harassment allegations involving legislative interns. Well, President Joe Biden is preparing to make his intention to seek a second term official next week, with advisors planning to launch his reelection campaign as soon as Tuesday. The timing and method of the announcement mirror how the Obama-Biden ticket launched its reelection bid in 2012. Well, BuzzFeed News is shutting down. BuzzFeed's announcement came the same day the digital news media company Insider said it would shed 10% of its workforce. The job cuts reflect a broader downturn in the media and tech industries as the breakneck growth seen in the immediate aftermath of the pandemic has begun to rapidly fade amid a slowing economy. Other digital platforms that have announced headcount reductions include ESPN, Spotify, Yahoo, and Vimeo. Today, FX is set to premiere Dear Mama, the saga of Afeni and Tupac Shakur, a 5-part docuseries that explores the life of the late Afeni Shakur and her late son Tupac, the rapper, actor, poet, and political visionary. The series will also stream on Hulu. Dear Mama moves between the 1970s and 90s to tell the story of Tupac and the woman who so powerfully shaped him, connecting hip-hop with Black activism and the struggle for human rights. You are listening and watching This is Areva Martin in real time, and I'm your host, Areva Martin. This is your one-stop destination for today's trending news, expert analysis, and my unfiltered opinions. In this hour, I am joined by 2 brilliant contributors, Professor Lisa Woolfork of the University of Virginia and San Jose State University, Professor Shaun Fletcher. And in the second hour, KBLA Talk 1580 continues its celebration of Autism Acceptance and Awareness Month. Today, autism impacts 1 in 36 African American and Latino children and is the fastest growing childhood disability in the country. In the second hour, we're going to be talking about race, racism, and implicit bias in the diagnosis and treatment of individuals on the autism spectrum. I have 2 experts joining me to help us understand how the medical system is harming Black and brown children with autism. But before I bring on my guest, here's what I'm thinking in real time. Finally, this week, some good news about African American men. This story just really warms my heart. 2 Black men who served nearly 17 years in prison after being wrongfully convicted in California were declared innocent. The verdicts of Dupree Glass and Juan Rayford concluded a new trial that began in October after a state appeals court panel vacated both of their convictions in 2020. So they've been out since 2020, but today they have been adjudicated as innocent. And that's so important because California has a new law that says if there is an adjudication that you are innocent, you can recover $900,000 from the state. Now, that's on top of the lawsuit that these two men are going to file for their wrongful prosecution and wrongful incarceration. After the judge made his ruling, Mr. Glass and Mr. Rayford embraced each other and their attorneys outside this courthouse. They were cheering. Their family members were cheering. Mr. Rayford clutched his baby daughter. He called it an amazing feeling to finally have their records wiped clean and their reputations restored. Now, this is one of the first cases that's brought under this new California law that guarantees compensation for defendants who've had their cases thrown out and allows them to present evidence proving their innocence. Now, you may be thinking, like, why is this such a big deal? And why is Areva so excited? I'm excited because 2,800 plus men and women in this country to date have been wrongfully convicted of crimes. And I've done stories where men have served 25, 30, almost 40 years for crimes that they did not commit. Now, the federal government is considering, or federal lawmakers are pushing to enact a federal statute that would allow for the compensation of exonerees across the country. This is so important because not every state has this law that California has. In some states, you can serve 20, 30 years, be innocent, get out, and not be able to recover one dime. So I'm super excited for these two men. I'm super excited that California had the foresight to enact this compensation law and that it's now being considered on the federal level. This is really important legislation. We should all support it in real time. This is the kind of good news we all need at the end of a week. Stay with us. KBLA Talk 1580.
If you're not listening to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings on KBLA Talk 1580, you're missing out. Everybody wants to talk to Tavis.
That's one reason, by the way, why I'm so thrilled to have this conversation with you today. The three people I always most hoped would interview me were Phil Donahue, Studs Terkel, and Tavis Smiley. Donahue's retired, Terkel's deceased, so this is a real thrill for me. And the reason why I have such respect for what you do is you have a historically informed conversation of depth and detail.
Be sure to tune in to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings, 9 a.m. to 12 noon on your unapologetically progressive radio station, KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580. This is a rather bold pronouncement, but we think we can back it up. If you come across a radio frequency anywhere putting more variety and more diversity on the air than KBLA Talk 1580, we sure would like to hear about your discovery.
You got to have vision.
You can search, but we are confident that you won't find more shows covering more topics, hosted by a more diverse and inclusive lineup of talkers than the squad we have assembled here at KBLA Talk 1580.
This is the time, brothers. This is the time.
We've got something for everybody.
That's right.
Health and healing, history and humor, issues and events, empowerment and entertainment, all in one station.
What's really going on?
Free enterprise, you dig?
KBLA Talk 1580.
Yes.
Oh yeah. We got a lot to talk about.
King Kong ain't got on me.
Here comes the brand new flavor in your head.
Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show weekdays from 2 to 4 only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor in your head.
Is the pen mightier than the sword?
They say the pen is mightier than the sword. At KBLA Talk 1580, we not only have a lot to talk about, we have a lot to write about. Politics, relationships, business. business, empowerment, and culture. The all-star roster at KBLA Talk 1580 has you covered.
That's what it's all about.
Be sure to follow us on all our socials for our latest book releases, op-eds, essays, and commentaries from our hosts. And, of course, download the KBLA 1580 app as we strive to remain your most trusted, credible, and reliable source for the issues you care about. This is unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
What up, baby?
I'm young, gifted, and black.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation and scholarships for the next generation of black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of the Minority Photojournalism Institute. Thanks, KBLA, for your generous $10,000 scholarship gift to help us train the next generation of black photojournalists.
Congratulations to all the students who will benefit from the scholarship dollars raised at our Black History Month luncheon, honoring black legends in LA media. When we come forward at KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us.
Access granted.
We are tracking all of today's trending news with my brilliant contributors. Professor Lisa Woolfork, she is a professor at the University of Virginia. She's out with a new book, A Day with No Words. It just hit the bookstand, so make sure you check it out. And also joining me in this hour is San Jose State University Professor Shaun Fletcher. All right, Professor Woolfork, I'm going to start with you because pre-production or pre-show, you said you were shocked that the Supreme Court has allowed the abortion pill, the abortion medication, to remain available to women throughout the United States. Why are you shocked by that recent decision by the court? And I do mean recent, like this afternoon, this evening.
Yes, like 25 minutes ago, we discovered that some people still have rights to abortion. The limited right to abortion has not been completely gutted by this partisan court. I was absolutely convinced that this would be a sweeping loss for those of us who believe in the bodily autonomy of all Americans. Instead, they have put a small pause on the Texas judge's ruling that got rid of drugs that had been safe for 23 years. Someone who is not a doctor, but a partisan judge who is very much pro-life has decided that this particular abortion drug is unsafe. It is perfectly safe. It simply does well what it is intended to do, which is to give people choice over whether they decide to have a child within their own body or not. That is the purpose of the drug, and it works well. It has been approved for more than 2 decades. And yet, what we are seeing is this every single day. It feels like a new catastrophe continues to resonate from the corrupt administration from the previous presidency, and that we continue to have to that this president, the former president, might be gone in some ways, but the legacy of that disaster continues to reverberate, and it will absolutely harm the lives of girls, women, birthing people, etc. This is a stay. This is not a, I see it as a stay.
No, and it is a pause. You're right, Professor, because this is just giving the case an opportunity to work its way through the appeals process, because we know there's already been an appeal to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit. And no matter who wins or loses at the Fifth Circuit, the case is going to end up back at the doorsteps of the U.S. Supreme Court. What are you thinking, Professor Fletcher, about what the ultimate decision is once this case goes through the Fifth Circuit and makes its way back to the Supreme Court?
Well, I align with Dr. Woolfork, and I was surprised as well, because, again, ever since, and I won't even date it to the fall of Roe v. Wade, women's bodies have been under attack for a very, very, very long time and have been heavily politicized. And the to and fro in terms of political maneuverings from the Supreme Court on down have significantly played a major role in political campaigns, as Dr. Woolfork mentioned with the previous Trump administration. And we've even seen, not surprisingly, Justice Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito dissented from it as well. So possibly a harbinger of things to come, Areva, in terms of where this may end. It gives me somewhat solace that there has been a stay and a pause on it, but it's not the end of this story by any means. And while we're moving forward in a heavy political season, we know that how the Supreme Court has oftentimes operated, especially with Trump having packed it the way that he has, right, that it may not bode well for what the final outcome is going to be. So I'm holding my breath.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by this ruling. There's a concurring opinion in Dobbs, the case that overturned Roe v. Wade, where Kavanaugh says the Supreme Court was not getting in the business of directing states on how it should enact laws, whether to support or oppose abortion. So this decision, although temporary, is designed to honor what those judges said, which is, look, the Supreme Court is getting out of the business of, making decisions about abortion. So we'll see. But more importantly, I hope the Supreme Court is concerned about what it would do if it allowed that Texas judge's ruling to stand, because essentially they would be inviting these extremist, right-wing forces to challenge all kinds of drugs, to challenge the FDA, which since 1938 has been the voice, has been the final arbiter of what drugs make it to the marketplace or not. So this wouldn't just be about this abortion pill. I mean, it could be COVID medication. It could be medication that individuals take who are transitioning. I mean, anything that Republicans decide to put dead center in the culture war could end up being challenged by a group and then having judges substitute their legal knowledge for medical and scientific knowledge, which they don't have. But look at this, Professor Woolfork. Trump, who by all standards is as pro-life as you get, has been blasted by the Susan B. Anthony pro-life group saying, well, wait a minute. We are not going to endorse you. We are not going to support you unless you acknowledge that there needs to be a federal ban on abortions. What do you make of this? Donald Trump being, admonished by this pro-life group, Susan B. Anthony.
I just think that there's no honor among thieves. I believe that I think you can pull out 1,000 cliches to describe what has happened. Chickens coming home to roost, etc. However, the challenge that I believe the Republican Party seems to have found themselves in is that I do not believe they have any credibility as being regular and full human beings. I really do feel it used to be that people just wanted to be the party of the people, like they wanted to, represent the people and care about the people. I really do think that Republicans have a bad image issue. And the image is about the meanness, the stinginess, the unkindness. And there seems to be such great amounts of that. And it comes out, it flares in this election cycle. It doesn't surprise me that Trump would say anything. I do not believe this person believes anything that he says. I believe that he is told what to say, and sometimes he says it and sometimes he doesn't, but it doesn't matter. The words that issue from his mouth do not count as communication. I truly believe that because this organization that is censuring Trump would never have supported him in the first place if they actually upheld the values they say they believe in. Mm-hmm. This is a person who is not a paragon of whatever the pro-life movement says it is. This is just someone who is a useful fool, who has limited use. And we shall see if it's going to be him or someone else. But it seems like this race to the bottom to be as I can't even characterize it. My entire PhD is now eluding me with words to describe the depth of these people's desperation and unkindness and complete lack of care. The naked power grabs. If this was any other country, we would be able to identify this as clearly corrupt.
I'm glad you use the term naked power grab because Professor Fletcher, that's what we saw in Tennessee. Now we have Representative Scotty Campbell, one of these Republicans that voted to oust the two Justins, Justin Jones and Justin Pearson, himself had to resign before I guess he was concerned that he would face expulsion himself. And his resignation is because of sexual harassment allegations, not because he wanted to talk about gun control laws, not because he wanted to stand up for the families who had lost their loved ones to senseless gun violence, but he apparently believed there was evidence that he committed some kind of sexual harassment against these legislative interns. What do you think of this hypocrisy? So he's voting the Justins out, knowing that he was like 2 seconds himself from walking out the door of that Tennessee House.
Listen, Areva, Dr. Woolfork, I would say that I'm surprised, but I'd be lying to both of you if I did. How many times have we seen this on the highest level? We just finished talking about Donald Trump. This is Trumpian Republican ethics and edicts to where you feel brazen and emboldened to live out in the open in your politics, to not believe your lying eyes, but believe me, that I am going to ultimately be the final say on what is right, what is wrong, and I will wag my finger at those that we believe are against our best interest of the Republican Party. And dare I say constituents, but I don't believe they actually represent most of them, quite honestly, like we saw in the previous election. But it rises to the highest level of hypocrisy, but it's the playbook now. Again, when we talk about power grabs, and this is what strikes me about this story, but also the previous story, is that Republicans taking a page from the Trumpian playbook, there seems to be an absolute power grab, not simply on lower levels. And when I think about even the previous story around whether it should be a federal or left up to the states, and so many Republicans are up in arms when you leave it up to the states, because I think their grab is for absolute power. Their grab is for absolute control, to where we start to see infighting amongst the Republican Party to grab absolute. I think it is yesteryear where we were talking about lower levels of control of the Republican Party. I think their next move in the playbook is absolute power, because they've even, you want to talk about communication, Dr. Woolfork, they've shifted the rhetoric even to start conditioning the American public to be okay with some rhetoric we have only heard from dictators and fascists. So now we are starting to try and condition the American public to be okay with the next move in the playbook.
I agree with this so much, Dr. Fletcher. And what I'm so happy that we can identify is that this manipulation has started with, it started at the upper levels of the party. And then these think tanks, they send out and they rally the grassroots. This is how we end up with somehow the word woke, which was for Black people, being, completely commodified and corrupted, so much so that now Black people are supposed to disavow it. I am so sorry. I will not be volunteering to help you oppress me. I will resist that at every turn, and I urge everybody to do the same.
No, excellent point both of you make about language and the power of language, and how so much language has been co-opted. You're right. The term woke, DeSantis loves to say Florida is where woke goes to die. And he loves to give these speeches where he's, touting wokeism and how he's going to kill wokeism in everything that he touches in Florida. And DeSantis is trying to out-Trump if that can be done. But we're seeing a big pushback. There's a bunch of articles in the paper today about Republican donors and the base saying, Ron DeSantis, you're not ready for prime time. And they point to a number of things, including this fight that he's taken on with Disney. What do you make of that, Dr. Fletcher? A Republican fighting with a big corporate employer. They're supposed to be on the side of employers like Disney, not fighting them.
I think Republicans are scrambling for some sort of infrastructure, some sort of scaffolding. I think what they found out in the 2020 election is that this sort of political chess or checkers isn't really working like it did during 2016. It's no longer working. There has to be some sort, it can't be the Wizard of Oz. There needs to be something of substance back there. And now they're sitting here trying to retrofit this Republican Party that has been in shambles for the last several years. And they're reaching for any maneuver that they can reach for. And if they feel like it's going to resonate with the base that has largely begun to shift. All right. And if that's a Trumpian move to call out and go and punch the biggest person in the schoolyard. That's a Trump move to get attention, to say this is the type of leadership we need to take back the White House and make America great again. And we know what that signals as well. So again, DeSantis is but a Trumpian neophyte. He is a carbon copy trying to raise the stakes, what he believes that the constituency wants. But I think it is a misguided attempt, and we're going to see that play out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when we come forward, I want to talk about Joe Biden says he's going to be running for president again next year, 2024, and another senseless shooting when people are just doing normal things, like a 6-year-old girl kicking a basketball, yet she and her father end up shot. So many senseless shootings happening in this country. It's hard to keep up with them. I want to talk about what's driving this and, where does it end when we come forward right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
Gotta stay fresh, my house shot with a rest bar,
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
If you're not listening to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings on KBLA Talk 1580, you're missing out. Everybody wants to talk to Tavis.
That's one reason, by the way, why I'm so thrilled to have this conversation with you today. The three people I always most hoped would interview me were Phil Donahue, Studs Terkel, and Tavis Smiley. Donahue's retired, Terkel's deceased, so this is a real thrill for me. And the reason why I have such respect for what you do is you have a historically informed conversation of depth and detail.
Be sure to tune in to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings, 9 a.m. to 12 noon on your unapologetically progressive radio station, KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580. This is a rather bold pronouncement, but we think we can back it up. If you come across a radio frequency anywhere putting more variety and more diversity on the air than KBLA Talk 1580, we sure would like to hear about your discovery.
You got to have vision.
You can search. We are confident that you won't find more shows covering more topics, hosted by a more diverse and inclusive lineup of talkers than the squad we have assembled here at KBLA Talk 1580.
This is the time, brothers. This is the time.
We've got something for everybody.
That's right.
Health and healing, history and humor, issues and events, empowerment and entertainment, all in one station.
What's really going on?
Free enterprise, you dig?
KBLA Talk 1580.
Yes.
Oh yeah. We got a lot to talk about.
King Kong ain't got on me.
Here comes the brand new flavor in your head.
Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show, weekdays from 2 to 4 only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor in your head. Yeah.
Is the pen mightier than the sword?
They say the pen is mightier than the sword. At KBLA Talk 1580, we not only have a lot to talk about, we have a lot to write about. Politics, relationships, business, empowerment, and culture. The all-star roster at KBLA Talk 1580 has you covered.
That's what it's all about.
Be sure to follow us on all our socials for our latest book releases, op-eds, essays, and commentaries from our hosts. And, of course, download the KBLA 1580 app as we strive to remain your most trusted, credible, and reliable source for the issues you care about. This is unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
What up, baby? I'm young, gifted, and black.
KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation and scholarships for the next generation of black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of the Minority Photojournalism Institute. Thanks, KBLA, for your generous $10,000 scholarship gift to help us train the next generation of black photojournalists.
Congratulations to all the students who will benefit from the scholarship dollars raised at our Black History Month luncheon, honoring black legends in LA media. When we come forward at KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us.
Access granted.
In a survey conducted by the public opinion research firm Eviderus, KBLA Talk 1580 consistently emerged as the station of choice for black audiences in the Los Angeles media market and beyond. The survey also revealed that the vast majority of black audiences are concerned about the lack of black-owned media and are more likely to listen to talk radio that focuses on issues that impact the black community. For some reason, the other talk stations haven't quite figured that out.
If you think about KFI, well, KFI only has like a 3% black listenership. 3%. So there's a good 97% out there to support a station like KBLA.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black. Your black. Your black.
Follow the leader. KBLA Talk 1580. Follow the leader.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram at KBLA 1580.
Follow the leader.
Are you ready?
The station leading the way with exclusive interviews,
Follow the leader.
stimulating conversation, and intellectual discourse that empowers, enlightens, and informs.
Follow the leader.
Follow the leader at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Keep following the leader.
Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Gotta stay fresh, my house shot with a rest bar, shot with a rest bar, shot with a rest bar.
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
If you're not listening to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings on KBLA Talk 1580, you're missing out. Everybody wants to talk to Tavis.
That's one reason, by the way, why I'm so thrilled to have this conversation with you today. The three people
I am back, and I'm talking with two amazing contributors today, Professor Lisa Woolfork of the University of Virginia and San Jose State University Professor Shaun Fletcher. And we have been talking about Donald Trump, so we need to give some equal time to Joe Biden, who says next week, as early as Tuesday, he may be announcing his re-election campaign. And I was just looking at this New York Times article about the fact that Biden has held the fewest news conferences since Reagan. So when you read into the article further, it talks about how Trump treated the media and called the media, enemy of the people, and how he railed against the media. Biden clearly has not done that, but Biden's team says he's meeting people where they are. He's doing interviews with folks like Drew Barrymore and influencers on YouTube, and he's not just talking to your traditional investigative and political journalists. Now, some say he's avoiding traditional journalists so that he can avoid missteps and gaffes, which he's known for. But what do you think, Professor Fletcher? You're a communications guy. Is this a strategy that works for Biden, and should he continue it into the re-election campaign?
Well, I certainly hope that he's getting some sound advice with this. And in many respects and many aspects of his first candidacy, but then obviously his administration, we've seen him take some pages from the Obama playbook. And we also saw when Obama ran and leading up to his candidacy, he did a lot of grassroots social media connection points that we hadn't seen in previous campaigns, and it proved to be effective. Well, now fast forward to leading up to 2024, and let's see if, in fact, taking sort of a left and pivoting away from traditional political communication channels are going to reach the very people that he wants to reach. Now, yes, the new voters who are going to be coming online, he has to reach. And yes, they are in these spaces. And yes, we have grown tired of traditional forms of media and the traditional back and forth of basic town halls where no one really pays attention to who are the new blood that he's trying to reach out there, who are going to be voting for the first time, that he's absolutely going to need. So it's going to be interesting to see, one, how his campaign strategy unfolds from a communication standpoint, but it's not always just the channels that he uses. I'm more so keeping a keen eye on how he uses them. It's not what he does, it's what he says when he gets on those channels that I'm going to be having such a close eye on.
Well, we know, Professor Woolfork, that a lot of folks are going to be watching, as Professor Fletcher said, some are going to be watching his movement, his posture, and other things that might suggest he's a little, I'll use the word old, to be running for president again. And they worry that if he wins, he will be 86, I think, at the end of his second term. Do you have any concerns about his age, or do you think that commenting on his age is a form of ageism?
I believe that both things can be true. I believe that America has long had an affection for older male presidents. I believe that there is something about this nation that believes if you are white, male, and older, like older in the upper retired years, maybe early 70s, that somehow qualifies you for president. I think one of the concerns about President Obama was not just the racism and white supremacy, but also somehow his youth and being like a junior senator and being new, et cetera, like all of these things would count against him. I think it is a wise strategy for Biden to take to social media, because these new voters that are coming online on age to vote now will be furious that they're pretty furious that the government seems to be stealing TikTok and ruining their good time, especially when they don't know how to operate their own phones. So the idea that you might have Biden, who can get a little bit of cool points kind of by being on TikTok and engaging. I believe Obama did something similar. He talked with Glozell, who was like a pretty popular influencer, and I think brought her to the White House. So this might seem like a gimmick, but I hate to be the one to tell you that people do not read as much as they used to. People are not reading newspapers as much as they used to. They're not reading magazine articles and profiles. They are not tuning into nightly news. People are finding their own means of trusted information, and that is disseminated most quickly, in my opinion, via the short form video of TikTok.
No, you're right. People aren't watching the nightly news. They're not watching cable news. There's a bubble. Those of us who are in the news business, those of us who are political junkies, we're glued to these traditional forms, whether it's online newspapers or cable news or nightly news. But the generation of voters that Biden will need to win are absolutely positively not getting their news from those sources. But what do you think, Professor Woolfork, the message that Biden will have to deliver to these younger voters who are going to look at him and see their grandfather or their great-grandfather and say, this dude is too old? And I've had people say that. We need young blood. We need someone young. How is he going to bridge that gap?
I believe he does have a vice president, Kamala Harris, who could be useful for this purpose. I really believe that the only thing that Biden can promise, and I think that this is something that Democrats should definitely press on, is that we want you to have more freedom rather than less. That is the choice. It is the choice between being able to have birth control and being able to study African American literature and culture and have all the people's names in the book and not. This seems an easy choice to me, except that the Republicans have done a great job with building in very young, conservative, anti-choice, anti-freedom, anti-everything, and especially anti-woke in order to make this meanness more popular. And so I believe that if they can capitalize on choosing freedom versus choosing limitations and burn books, I think that they should have a very firm, a good firm start.
And what do you think, Professor Fletcher? You're a communications expert. What is the message that Biden should be delivering to young voters and voters who are, quite frankly, some of them are angry about student loan debt. They think he didn't go far enough. They're blaming him for the courts holding it up. They are blaming him for the overturning of Roe v. Wade. They blame him for everything, things that he's not even responsible for. So what message is he going to deliver to these young folks?
I think the challenge that Biden is going to have going forward, whether he uses all available means to reach out to this generation, I'm not certain that they're going to reach back out to him. I think that's going to be the challenge with this. And while Dr. Woolfork mentions Vice President Kamala Harris, her popularity amongst many who supported her going as a ticket with President Biden has waned as well. And I will say, while I ride with my fellow Howard University sister, I also have been somewhat disappointed when given the opportunity. And we know VP is oftentimes a figurehead position. All right.
Wait a minute. You're
I don't want to send us on a tangent, Areva, but I will.
This nonsense, Professor Fletcher. Kamala Harris, stack her up against every vice president that we have had, and she fares as well, if not better. Tell me something that
let me be fair, Areva. Areva, let me be fair. Let's keep it in context. Let's keep it in context, because I don't want 100 DMs. I am not saying that she has failed us. I am saying and she was given a lot of unfair expectations for what a VP is positioned to do.
Yes.
That's the point I'm making. And I think that many who propped her up to be something other than what the VP was going to be, like she was going to be president part 2. She wasn't. Yes. That's not the VP's role, is what I'm saying. That we've seen some of her popularity wane a bit, and I'm not sure that she's been able to address it in a way that has been fair to position herself the way that the public can actually understand what her role and expectations should have been. So bring that forward, talking about what he can do. I'm not certain that putting Kamala Harris is going to allow that, because I think we have to level set first expectations so it doesn't work against the ticket going forward. But I think he's going to have to push the envelope much further than what the Democratic Party has done. This generation and my students sitting in class, they're not so much worried about student loans as my generation is worried about it. They are worried about right to choose. They are worried about contending against potential fascism and dictatorial movements from the Republican Party. They are worried about getting out in the streets and actually having a firm voice and not playing nice politics of their grandfather's generation, which they liken to President Biden.
All right, Professor Fletcher, the ladies let you have your comment, and let's just bring it home before we have to go to some commercials. Kamala Harris has been the most outspoken advocate on the issue of choice. So I'm glad to hear that your students care about choice. She has been a phenomenal ambassador for the president on the issue of choice. She gave one of the most, I think, compelling speeches of her career down at Fisk University, talking about the expulsion of those two Justins. So I may give you that it was a little rocky start, and yes, expectations were set in an unrealistic way for a VP, but I think she has risen to the to the cause, and she is standing on her own. She is doing a phenomenal job, and I think we have to give her credit for what she does do and stop playing these old kind of tropes that comparisons that never ever happened when we had white men in the job of VP. I'm going to let you have a response to that when we come forward after listening to some commercials. So you hold your thought, Professor Fletcher, and I know you want to jump in on this Woolfork as well, Professor Woolfork. So when we come forward, more on KBLA Talk 1580.
Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show, weekdays from 2 to 4 only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor in your head.
Is the pen mightier than the sword?
They say the pen is mightier than the sword. At KBLA Talk 1580, we not only have a lot to talk about, we have a lot to write about. Politics, relationships, business, empowerment, and culture. The all-star roster at KBLA Talk 1580 has you covered.
That's what it's all about.
Be sure to follow us on all our socials for our latest book releases, op-eds, essays, and commentaries from our hosts. And, of course, download the KBLA 1580 app as we strive to remain your most trusted, credible, and reliable source for the issues you care about. This is unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
What up, baby? I'm young, gifted, and black.
KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation and scholarships for the next generation of black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of the Minority Photojournalism Institute. Thanks, KBLA, for your generous $10,000 scholarship gift to help us train the next generation of black photojournalists.
Congratulations to all the students who will benefit from the scholarship dollars raised at our Black History Month luncheon, honoring black legends in LA media. When we come forward at KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us.
Access granted.
In a survey conducted by the public opinion research firm Eviderus, KBLA Talk 1580 consistently emerged as the station of choice for black audiences in the Los Angeles media market and beyond. The survey also revealed that the vast majority of black audiences are concerned about the lack of black-owned media and are more likely to listen to talk radio that focuses on issues that impact the black community. For some reason, the other talk stations haven't quite figured that out.
If you think about KFI, well, KFI only has like a 3% black listenership. 3%. So there's a good 97% out there to support a station like KBLA.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black. Your black. Your black.
Follow the leader.
KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram at KBLA 1580.
Follow the leader.
Are you ready?
The station leading the way with exclusive interviews,
Follow the leader.
stimulating conversation, and intellectual discourse that empowers, enlightens, and informs.
Follow the leader.
Follow the leader at KBLA 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Keep following the leader.
Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Gotta stay fresh, my house.
All right, I'm back with San Jose State, and now I realize my homeboy from St. Louis, Professor Shaun Fletcher. That's why I have to give him a little, I'm going to have to take him out back or something.
You tried.
Professor Lisa Woolfork, tell him why he's wrong about our amazing vice president.
I believe that Kamala Harris has faced the type of expectations that many Black women have to face in the workplace, and that is this unrealistic standard where the standard is so high that it is not possible to meet it. So that it feels like she's not doing a good job because she's being compared and expected to do a job that has never been done by anyone before ever. And so the same mediocrity that we've happened to have for every other vice president we've ever had doesn't seem to fly for her. And it's like, well, she's not doing enough. And even if she does the exact same things they did, it would be seen as inadequate. So the fact that she's doing way more is still not adequate. And that's when you have to realize that the standards themselves are what's broken, in my opinion.
Excellently said. Let me give you a little insight. So I've been friends with our vice president since college. We've known each other for years. We're sister friends. I worked on all of her campaigns, the campaign that she ran for president that she shut down. But when she became VP, what many people don't know is the vice president's office is controlled by the president's office. You have your own team, your own staff, many of whom, though, are put in place by the president. So you work at the pleasure of the president when you are the VP. So no matter what great ideas you may have, guess what? It's the president and his team that's dictating your agenda. So we got to judge her by what she has been allowed to do and given to do by the president. And, you know, we heard Biden talk a lot about they were going to be, and I think this is to your point, Shaun Fletcher, they were going to be co-presidents, right? He said all of that. They're going to be together, blah, 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 blah. So, you know, there's the president and then there's the team, right? That supports the president. So you're not just dealing with the head of you know, the president, him or herself, which hope there will be a her, but it's a whole apparatus. And that apparatus is designed to prop up that president, and that VP cannot overshadow, cannot overpower, cannot do anything that takes that limelight away from that president. Okay, I got to have you back so we can have this conversation because I got to move on. I want to get both of your opinions about this new docuseries on Tupac Shakur and his mother. I'm just so excited that we're going to get to learn about this family and, you know, his mom's involvement with the Black Panther. What are you thinking about this, Dr. Fletcher, and the significance of this coming out in this moment?
I'm excited to watch it. I'm positively optimistic that it is going to be well done and it's going to tell a genuine, authentic story that's a representation of both iconic figures, not just in the Black culture, but in American culture, that we continue to see the co-optation of Black culture. But my hope is that we will learn a lot more about the social justice activism. We will learn not just about his mother, Afeni Shakur, but of Tupac Shakur. That was often the delineation, because I was a hip hop head when Tupac was living and at the height of his career. And a lot of the delineation between his greatness and other rappers, mainly B.I.G., was his social justice advocacy and his social consciousness of his messaging, not just in his lyrics, but in the movies that he has done, including one of my favorites, Juice. I'm hoping that we're going to see that unfold. So oftentimes, many of the misnomers that are out there will be corrected and that we will have a genuine representation of both of them. That is my hope. I'm excited to watch.
Yeah. What about you, Professor Woolfork? What are you going to be watching for in this story about this powerful mother figure and then this just, you know, visionary actor, poet, political activist, Tupac?
I think it's a story that is long overdue for being told. I think that it's come about in a variety of ways. People have done it as a crime series. I saw there was there's all these other kind of spin outs. One of the things I think is really important is that we honor and kind of recognize this long, strong tradition of Black creativity through every single generation. And I believe that that Tupac's music and influence is one that was obviously cut short. And I also think one of the things I'm actually genuinely most excited about is that people will stop thinking that Assata Shakur is Tupac's mother. There are many people who think that. And so the idea that now that we all that it was never Assata, we all knew that, but not all of us knew that. And so I think that this is going to be a really important discovery to basically to give Afeni Shakur her own fuller story. To not just be someone who is referred to in Tupac's music, someone who is not just, a mother to one of the most instrumental figures in hip hop history. More than that, but as her own person. And so, and I think that going between the 70s and the 90s, we might get to see her before she even becomes a mother. And that's part of the story that I don't think has been told as much. And so I think that that's something that I know I'm looking forward to.
And how many times do we see a Black mother and son story be a story of tragedy? How many times do we see that played out? Far too often we do, and we see it popularized, and we see that's what other news outlets will pick up, the tragedy of a little Black boy and his strong Black mother who pulled herself up by her bootstraps. And no. My hope is that while there is a potential element to a story of potential tragedy, but the triumph and the victorious outcome that we saw in terms of the impacts of both of them that they had on not just the culture, but each other. It was a strong relationship of admiration, of respect. Tupac adored his mother. And we don't hear that story told of little Black boys adoring their mothers. It is this story of tragedy that, quite honestly, is tired and it's untrue.
Well, thank you for putting that in perspective. And as a Black man, I assume you adore your mother. Right, so many Black men do. And I'm looking forward to seeing this series as well. I'm so glad it's being told. Wow, I want to thank Shaun Fletcher and Lisa Woolfork for holding it down in the first hour of Areva Martin in Real Time. This is my first time having both of you on. I'm so grateful for your insights and your wisdom and your analysis. Really helped us make sense of today's news, and hope you will come back. We'll have that conversation about our beloved VP and so many other topics near and dear to all of us, because I see we share so much. We have so much in common. But again, thanks so much. And again, Lisa Woolfork did not write the book A Day Without Words. It was written by Tiffany Hammond. I made a mistake when I said that, but also an important book that anyone should pick up, particularly if you have an interest in folks who are nonverbal and how they communicate. But again, thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you so much, Shaun. When we come forward, we're going to be talking about race, implicit bias, and how the medical system is harming Black and brown kids with autism. Stay with us, KBLA Talk 1580.
This is a rather bold pronouncement, but we think we can back it up. If you come across a radio frequency anywhere putting more variety and more diversity on the air than KBLA Talk 1580, we sure would like to hear about your discovery.
You got to have vision.
You can search. We are confident that you won't find more shows covering more topics, hosted by a more diverse and inclusive lineup of talkers than the squad we have assembled here at KBLA Talk 1580.
This is the time, brother.